Hey guys, this is Tauna. Today we're going to be talking about some cards that you guys can pick up ahead of Duskmourn reveals before they potentially spike. So this is obviously, a little bit early. Duskmourn reveals start in, I believe it's 3 days. And while we don't know much about Duskmourn yet, we do know a few of the mechanics, a few of the creature types that are either likely to be there or at least have been revealed. I think all the ones have been revealed so far that we're going to be talking about here. And it is an enchantment focused set, including enchantment creatures. Therefore, some of these are going to be pretty cracked predictions, pretty out there, but that's what we're here for, to have fun and kind of talk about this kind of stuff. Now, while I am going to be talking about some kindred / tribal stuff, that's like, talking about like the different creature types and stuff, there may not be support in this set for them. Like there might not be a new spirit that comes out that buffs other spirits or anything. Don't let that dishearten you. Just because there's not support for them in the set as a full deck doesn't mean that there's not going to be support for them in other sets as well. So say, for example, a new enchantment creature comes out, or a new demon comes out, or something like that you absolutely love, and a whole bunch of demons come out that you love in this set. You can obviously take those demons and be like, you know what, I'm going to make a demon based deck. I am going to have to use a commander from another set, or fill it out with some other stuff, but at least you're going to get a whole bunch of very interesting stuff from Duskmourn, and therefore it's also stuff that can potentially really jump up. So stuff that I'm kind of thinking of here, it's like when Balin got announced, there was like Worldfire Awakener kind of spiked up a whole bunch. He's not like to do with that at all, or there's like with Bloomburrow, there was a whole bunch of different rats that kind of jumped up and stuff. There's a whole bunch of stuff that will spike up with the set because people are going to be building decks from this set, whether it's kindred decks or just kind of like enchantment focused deck, delirium decks, a whole bunch of really cool stuff. Now obviously there's going to be some risk involved if you do go and pick up some of these cards prior to spoilers, but I chose ones here that are not likely to get reprinted even as special guests, in my opinion, especially ones from Universe Beyond products. It is unlikely that they're going to be reprinting them in here. Possible, sure, but very unlikely. All right. And also make sure that if you want to support the channel, go down and pick up the cheapest cards around by going and supporting us on TCG Player, as well as, subscribing as well. So some general tribal / kindred stuff. So if you're going to be like looking at the set and being like, okay, there's going to be a whole bunch of nightmares releasing out here, I want to potentially build a nightmare deck. There's stuff like Patchwork Banner. This is always going to be good, always going to be useful in so many different, like, any deck that's going to be based around a creature type. 3-Tree City as well, Immerse. So I put a couple on here that are like not just to do with like general stuff, but also to do with multiple different stuff. So like Immerse here has to do with nightmares and horrors. So if you go into Duskmourn and you see a whole bunch of nightmares that you like, a whole bunch of horrors that you like, Immerse could easily be a really great commander for those. And yeah, he's like at $7.81 at the moment. I don't think he's going to get reprinted either. We've got like Chainer's Torment here, a very, very cheap card. But if you are potentially building a big kind of nightmare horror deck, then this is going to be good in that. We've got Hallowed Haunting here. If you're building like a spirit-based deck or a enchantment-based deck, both of these decks would definitely want this if you're running like, white in it at all. So looking more at horrors. Now we know horrors are going to be in there. There's a few different horrors that have been revealed. Captain Nagarthrod here from the Pirate Precon. This is a horror-based deck. My friend has this, and it's a mill deck that mills us, and then he steals our stuff away, and it is a very, very fun deck. That deck, there's the Mind Flayers one. It's a precon from Baldur's Gate, and there is going to be just so many different horrors that you could potentially pick up to put into this deck. Or even if, you don't want him as the commander, there's a whole bunch of, different decks that you could potentially run him in the 99 for a horror-based deck. We've got Zelix as well, who I believe is actually also in that deck as the alternate commander. Whenever you mill one or more creatures, create that many, create a 1/1 black horror creature token. We've got Wharf Infiltrator here. Whenever it deals combat damage to a player, you may draw a card and then discard a card, and then if you discard a creature card, you can pay 2 and create a 3/2 colorless Eldrazi. So it's a horror that creates more horrors. Really nice. We've got Arvanox. So this one was from the Secret Lair for what's that show? Stranger Things. And then they made a Universes Within version of it in, I don't remember which set that was. I think it was, wow, my brain's blanking on it. I think it was newcomer, right? Either way, you know, this was a great horror within that. I've used this in a few different decks. We've got Vashta Narada here, Indestructible, Shadow, and Morbid at the beginning of each end step. If a creature died, put a +1/+1 on it. So this is a really interesting horror, especially if you've got horrors that are based around combat triggers. So like the Captain, based around combat triggers and dealing damage to people and then making them mill. This is a great card to be able to kind of sneak in there because it's only can be blocked by creatures with Shadow, which is rarely ever used, as well as the fact that it's indestructible as well. So it might only start out as a 1/1, but it's going to grow big and it's going to be really dangerous really quickly. So as for spirits, we know that there's going to be spirits in the set as well. We've got the King of the Oathbreakers from the Lord of the Rings set. Whenever it or another spirit you control becomes the target of a spell, it phases out. That is really cool. Also, whenever a spirit or himself phase in, you get to create another spirit. So if you want to build a spirit-based deck, this is a really cool commander for it. We've got the Quintaurus. So I've got Quintaurus Lawmaster here, but you know, any of the Quintauruses, all of them kind of have stuff to do with spirits. Even the Planeswalker one, actually, from Lost Caverns, has to do with spirits as well. So, you know, a whole bunch of really cool stuff that you could run with them. We've got Hoffrey as well, giving all your spirits trample and haste. And then whenever a non-token creature dies, exile it and then create a token that's a copy of it. That's a spirit. And then when it dies, return the exiled card to the graveyard. So, you know, your spirits die, they come back as spirits. They're still buffed and stuff. We've got Anduril, Flame of the West. So this is going to create 2 spirits when you attack with like a legendary creature when it's equipped on it. Daxos the Return. This is the one that I actually really, really like. So whenever you cast an enchantment, you get an experience counter. Then you can pay 1, a black, and a white. Put a white-black spirit enchantment creature token onto the battlefield. It has its creatures' toughness and power are equal to the number of experience counters you have. So there's just some really interesting stuff that you could do with spirits with this, especially because when you're looking at kind of spirits and stuff, enchantments go really well with them. So you've got some really cool stuff you can pull off with this. So then we've got demons. I have to mention Be'lakor first. Be'lakor, in my opinion, is just the best demon commander, an absolute bonkers demon commander. And shout out to my friend Jack John Jackson, who runs Be'lakor. A very, very cool commander. And even if you are not looking to build, like, even if, you know, there's nothing that's a demon kind of tribal commander that comes at us from Duskmourn, you can run Be'lakor and then there'll be demons releasing. Like we've already seen the Doomsday Excruciator, I think I pronounced that right. We've got Varagoth here with Death Touch, and then 1 and a black. It makes makes a target person search the library for a card and shuffle, and then put that card on the top. So, you know, just a really great repeatable tutor every time you attack, because you just play 1 and a black and boom. We've got Herald of Slaanesh. Reduce all your demon costs by 2. Other demons you control have haste as well. We've got the Bloodthirster here. This goes infinite with a lot of different stuff, like Satya, for example, making a clone of it, makes an infinite with the Bloodthirster. A really cool commander as well. Sorry, not commander. A really cool commander card that can go in a whole bunch of different commanders. We've got Liliana's Contract here. If you're running demons, this is a win con for demons, right? At the beginning of your upkeep, if you control 4 or more demons with different names, you win the game. It's a bit of a cheap win con, but if you're, you know, into winning the game, then you could potentially run that. As for nightmares, so we know the nightmares are coming along. They're going to have enchantment creature in there too. We've got like Ashiok, for example. Ashiok, I think nearly every version of Ashiok or every version of Ashiok creates nightmares through either his primary +1, or, you know, this one here is you get to put a creature card that's exiled with him onto the battlefield and it's a nightmare. We've got Cacophony Unleashed. This is actually a really nice run in not just nightmare decks, but in enchantment, like enchantment creature decks. So when it enters, if you cast it, destroy all non-enchantment creatures. And then when it or another enchantment enters, this is going to turn into a legendary 6/6 nightmare god with menace and death touch that's an enchantment creature too. Really, really cool. We've got Chainer Dementia Master here. He is going to be able to allow you to steal cards. You get to pay 3 black and then pay 3 life, put a target creature card onto the battlefield under your control, and it becomes a nightmare. Unfortunately, when he leaves the battlefield, you have to exile all nightmares, but if you're stealing other people's stuff, it's not quite as bad. So as for actual enchantments, enchantment focused sets, so there's lots of stuff here. We've got like Anethea. Anethea is probably the one that I like the most. Now, she's obviously from the Enduring Enchantment precon from Commander Masters, but she gives all of your enchantment creatures menace, as well as when she attacks or enters the battlefield, you can choose an enchantment in your graveyard, make a token copy of it, except it's a black zombie on the battlefield. So that's really cool to be able to add in like some recurrence for your different enchantments and stuff. We've got Sterling Grove here, giving all your enchantments Shroud. I actually added this into my Bumbleflower deck most recently because, you know, I wanted to make sure that my enchantments were sticking around on that because it was kind of like a win con. We've got Ondu Spirit Dancer here. Whenever enchantment enters, create a token copy of it. Composer of Spring. Whenever an enchantment enters, you may put a land from your hand onto the battlefield, or if you control 6 or more enchantments, instead put a creature or land onto the battlefield, so you can just cheat creatures out with this too. We've got Estrad now keep in mind that because this is just enchantment as well, it counts enchantments creatures. Estrad the Unmasked. This is one I actually really like. So it is untap each enchanted permanent you control, and then you get to, like, you know, create aura enchantments attached to things, and then it's going to give them totem armor. And then the -7 here, mill 7, and then return all non-aura enchantment cards from your graveyard to the battlefield, then do the same with all auras. So you can use this to kind of like self-mill with the -7, and then, you know, do some untapping shenanigans and stuff. It's a very cool kind of Bant commander. I'm going to be very interested to see if there's like enough enchantment support to be able to kind of work alongside her. I know there's not going to be really auras in here besides, you know, using them with her -1 stuff, but I think that they could potentially run her and she could be interesting. She's probably the one on this list that I'm least confident about. We've got Merkel here. Merkel obviously from the Baldur's Gate set. Whenever a non-token creature dies, you can exile it, and if you do, create a token that's a copy of it. So similar to how the new Glimmers, I think they are. The new Glimmers, when they die, they get exiled and then they come back without their enchantment. Without their creature. They just come back as normal enchantments. This is essentially that, except for all of your creatures. So you can do some really cool, interesting stuff with this, with anything that's like got passive abilities that are like, you know, as long as this is on the battlefield, you can't take damage or whatever. I don't know. I'm just thinking out the box there. You know, some really cool stuff, especially because you're in like white and black. There's a lot of kind of burn stuff, like whenever a creature enters, each opponent loses 1 and you gain 1, or something along those lines, right? So you could do some really interesting stuff with this, as well as the fact that it's just creating more enchantments for you. All right, now as for Delirium, so Delirium is an actual mechanic rather than a creature type, and it is if there are 4 or more card types among cards in your graveyard. So you get to basically do something extra with that, or like we've seen Delirium on the new Winter, which is you exile card types, and then like you exile cards and then you get to return something so from your graveyard. So the first one that kind of came to mind here is Ripples of Undeath. I don't think this is going to be reprinted just because it was printed in Modern Horizons 3, but this is absolutely one of the best mill cards in my opinion. It is insanely great. You get to mill 3 at the beginning of your pre-combat main phase, then you can pay 1 and 3 life and put one of them back into your hand. So it's just continual mill, and then you get to selectively put something back into your hand. So if, you know, you've got like the 4 card types here, you could put something useful back in there. If you don't, you could leave one of the card types in there and return something else, but you also don't need to return something if you just want to mill. Biotransference is absolutely bonkers. It makes all of your creatures in, you know, the battlefield, or your creature cards or your creature spells, all become artifacts in addition to it. So that means that all of your creatures in the graveyard are now creature artifact. They could even be creature artifact enchantment if you really have, like, you know, if you have an enchantment creature in there. So that means that, you know, this will either count for 2 or 3 of these, which makes it just so easy to be able to hit Delirium with Biotransference, as well as, you know, whenever you cast a creature spell, essentially, then you lose 1 life and you get to create a token to be able to block damage or attack with or whatever. Out of the Tombs, so 2 Necron cards in a row. The Universe is Beyond, they're not going to get reprinted. This one's really cool as well. It is, I don't know, this is up there with Ripples as one of the best mill cards as well. This one here is, you are going to put 2 counters on it and then mill up to the amount of counters each time. So that means that on the first turn you're milling 2, and then on the second turn you're milling 4, etc., and it just keeps going up. So that means you're going to be able to get a lot of stuff in your graveyard, and then when you have nothing in your library to be able to draw cards, you then return a creature card from the graveyard onto the battlefield. Lots of great ways to be able to use this. This is absolutely crazy. I really need this for my Dissa deck, but it's really hard to find. We've got the Nyx Weaver here. It's an enchantment creature, which means it counts for 2 for the Delirium. It is only an uncommon, so I don't expect this one to spike up too hard, but it is at the beginning of your upkeep, mill 2 cards. Really cool. We've got the Vault of the Whisperers. I put this one on here, but realistically it's not about this particular card. It's about any of the artifact lands. They will count as both artifacts and lands for Delirium, so you can do some really kind of, you know, funky stuff with just being able to, you know, get 1 artifact land in there and boom, that's 2 counting for it. Really easy to hit your stuff that way. Fenax here, so this is a legendary enchantment creature. So this is, he is going to allow you to mill as well. Creatures you control have tap, target player, put the top X cards of his or her library into the graveyard. So you can use your creatures to either mill yourself or mill opponents if you really want to. So, you know, him alone, if he's a creature at the time, he's going to be able to mill you 7. Really cool. So now, as for the actual, this deck here, so this is the Endless Punishment deck. Velgoroth, I can't pronounce his name, is the commander here. Now, I wasn't aware of this, but somebody pointed it out to me. This deck here has got an actual description now, or, you know, some people have found a description for it, which is going to be a group slug deck. So a group slug deck is essentially kind of dealing out damage to everyone all at the same time. Kind of like making it so that everyone is slowly kind of getting drained and stuff. It's like the opposite of like a group hug deck, essentially. Just kind of continuously kind of screwing everyone over. It basically, you know, just trying to burn everyone out, which is really cool. I'm very, very interested in this, if that is the case. You know, it's up on the wiki kind of showing that it's group slug deck. A few different websites have reported on it and stuff. If you are someone who knows where that kind of, like, where that was announced, let me know, because haven't been able to find that yet, but I trust that it is very likely, like based off of the actual description of it as well on the like Amazon website and stuff. So looking at this, there is a lot of interesting kind of group slug stuff. First of all, Mana Barbs. This is a personal favorite of mine. I just added this into my Oja Axinal deck, and don't tell my friends that, because this is going to deal just so much damage. Just whenever a player taps a land for mana, it deals 1 damage to it. So when you kind of start getting into some interesting kind of group sluggy kind of stuff, you can obviously, you're slowly burning everyone out, but you want to make it kind of one-sided. So stuff like Oja Axinal as well is good, but I forgot to put him on the here. But you know, making it so that because that's like one-sided, right? Like, so it deals more damage to your opponents because whenever something deals non-combat damage to an opponent rather than everyone. So this is going to burn opponents a lot, as well as burn you. We've got Descent into Avernus. I think that out of every single Magic card, this is my personal favorite of. Yeah, I absolutely love Descent into Avernus. It is slowly burning everyone out. It is slowly kind of ramping everyone up by giving them all treasure tokens. It's just a very fun card. This is honestly, like, I think it's between this and Dawn's Truce. Dawn's Truce I love because of the flavor and the flavor text and the alt art and stuff like that. Descent into Avernus I love because it's just, here, we're all dying. Be quick about it. It's really cool. Sulfim. So I said about Oja Axonal, but Sulfim is very similar to that. Whenever a source you control will deal non-combat damage to a permanent or opponent, a permanent and opponent controls, it deals double that damage. So Oja Axonal, same. Sulfim or like Feldorn. I think it's Feldorn. All of that kind of burn increase cards, and then stuff like Bloodletter of Akhlysel. This I very, very much doubt is going to get reprinted, but oh my god, it is such a great card. Makes opponents lose twice as much life. So if you have something like that makes opponents lose, so say for example Direfleet Ravager, it makes each player loses a third of their life, right? This makes it so that the opponents are going to lose 2/3 of their life. You only lose a third still though. And then Mogis, God of Slaughter. So he is whenever at the beginning of each opponent's upkeep, it deals 2 damage to them unless they sacrifice a creature. This one here is not so much group slug. It's more kind of like burn. But it can kind of go well in this kind of group slug deck as well as kind of like a, we're all dying, but you're dying a little bit more because of Mogis. So let me know what you guys think. Obviously, as I said, this is kind of very, very early. I wanted to kind of do this pre-reveals because I think that some of these, once we kind of see the reveals, like if you see a card that's going to care about like a creature type that you like, get onto it straight away. And yeah, make sure you support the channel down below and make sure you subscribe. Have a great day and goodbye.